Title: The melody of the night darkness was my only companion. In the walls of my room, shadows danced to the rhythm of my somber thoughts. Every corner was a constant reminder of my failure, my loneliness, the profound depression that gnawed at my soul. There were days when the simple act of breathing felt like an unbearable burden. One night, the sepulchral silence that inhabited my home was interrupted by something unusual. A rope. A thick rope, made of rough hemp, now hung from the center of the ceiling. I didn't remember seeing it before. There was no reason for it to be there. I looked at it with bewilderment, trying to find a logical explanation for its sudden appearance, but my mind, clouded by sadness, found only emptiness. The rope swayed slightly, as if it had a life of its own, as if it were impatient. I tried to ignore it, but its presence was impossible to overlook. Every time I looked up, it was there, reminding me of my suffering, my despair. As the hours passed, the silence began to break. First, there were faint whispers, barely perceptible, that seemed to come from the shadows. Then, they became clearer, more defined. A voice, deep and hoarse, emanated from the rope, creeping into my ears, penetrating my mind. Free yourself from suffering. Join me. Fear paralyzed me. Was I hallucinating? Was it perhaps a manifestation of my own tortured mind? I tried to convince myself that it was all a product of my imagination, but the voice became increasingly insistent, more seductive. Life is pain. Death is peace. Here there is no suffering. The rope seemed to throb with each word, inviting me, begging me to end it all. The room became colder, darker. I felt a spectral presence around me, an oppressive energy that stole my breath. One night, as I sat on the edge of the bed, the voice became louder than ever. It was no longer a distant whisper, but a piercing scream that resonated in every cell of my body. Do it. End this. Join us. I looked up and saw a dark, blurred figure materializing just behind the rope. It was a specter, a tormented soul that seemed to have found peace in death. Its empty eyes stared at me with a chilling intensity, inviting me to follow in its footsteps. The specter extended a bony hand towards the rope, as if offering it to me. Here they await you. Here you will find the tranquility you so crave. I felt an irresistible force pushing me towards the rope. My feet moved on their own, as if possessed by an alien will. I approached slowly, hypnotized by the spectral figure and the seductive words that echoed in my head. When I was about to touch the rope, a fleeting memory flashed through my mind. The face of my mother, her warm smile, her unconditional love. A spark of hope, almost extinguished, ignited within me. I fought with all my strength against the dark force that dominated me. I clung to that memory, to that ray of light that connected me with life. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, trying to calm the terror that gripped me. When I opened my eyes again, the specter was still there, watching me with frustration. The voice, although still present, had lost strength. You cannot escape. Sooner or later, you will return. I ignored the voice and took a step back. Then, another. And another more. I walked away from the rope, from the darkness, from the death that awaited me at the end of the road. I ran to the door and left the room. I didn't stop until I reached the street. The moonlight hit my face, giving me a sense of relief and freedom. That night, I slept in a hotel. The next day, I returned to my house, ready to face my demons. The rope was still there, hanging from the ceiling, but it no longer had the same power over me. I decided to seek professional help. I started going to therapy and taking medication to control my depression. It was a long and painful process, but little by little I regained control of my life. One day, I mustered my courage and went back into the dark room. The rope was still there, silent, threatening. I stared at it and said, "You will not defeat me. I will not let you win." I took a pair of scissors and cut the rope. I threw it to the ground and stepped on it with rage. Then, I burned it in the garden. I watched as the flames consumed the hemp, reducing it to ashes. I felt a profound release, a sense of victory over the darkness. I knew that depression would still be part of my life, but I was no longer afraid of it. I had learned to fight against it, to find light in the midst of the storm. But the story doesn't end there. A year later, I moved to another house, leaving behind the memory of the cursed rope. I believed that I had managed to overcome my past, that I had escaped the influence of the specter. One night, while I was sleeping soundly, I was awakened by a familiar sound, a faint whisper that seemed to come from the shadows. Free yourself from suffering. Join me. I got out of bed, trembling with fear. I looked around, trying to identify the source of the sound. And then I saw it. Hanging from the ceiling, in the center of the room, was the rope. The same rope I had burned a year ago. This time, there was no specter, no seductive voices. Only the rope, swinging gently, inviting me to surrender. But I was no longer the same man who had succumbed to depression. I had learned to value life, to find beauty in the small things. I smiled sadly and looked at the rope with determination. "You will not defeat me," I said. "I have fought too hard to get here." I took the rope and tied it to the leg of the bed. Then, I tied it to the doorknob. And finally, I tied it to my wrist. The rope was now firmly secured, unable to hang from the ceiling. It was no longer a tool of death, but a constant reminder of my struggle, of my victory over the darkness. Every night, before going to sleep, I looked at the rope and thanked it, for teaching me the value of life. For showing me that, even in the darkest moments, there is always a light at the end of the road. The melody of the knot, once a song of despair, had become a symphony of hope.